Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Hitman HIT66-3R Full Lume Special Edition. This watch is available from wisetimepiece.com for $450, which is €416. Wise are a well-established microbrand. They were founded in 2008 and they're based in Bangkok in Thailand. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So with the watch box, one gets this thank you card, and it has a QR code you can scan with your Android or iPhone, and that will download information about the Wise watch brand. So the watch comes in a watch box which is made from black cardboard, and that's housed inside an outer black cardboard box, and the outer box is protected in shipping by this black cardboard sleeve you remove. So as you can see, on the lid to the outer box we have the Wise emblem and Wise logo in silver. So one removes the lid to the outer box, which is a snug fit, pulls down the flap, and inside there is a fabric protective panel which does a good job of protecting the inner watch box in shipping from any damage. So this is the watch box itself, made from matte black cardboard. Very well presented, finished to a good standard, has a spring-loaded hinge lid, and it's very aesthetically pleasing. So, spring-loaded hinge lid works well. The interior is fully upholstered with a contrasting grey velour fabric to a good standard, and inside we also get this Wise tag. Has the Wise emblem and Wise logo, and it says proud to be Thailand, because Wise are very proud to be making watches in Thailand since 2008, so they're a very well established micro brand. In the base there's a cutout, and that houses the padded pillow cushion which the watch sits on. It's upholstered with a contrasting grey velour fabric to a good standard, and it's a very snug fit inside the base, so it does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage, and I like the spring-loaded lid, works very well, so good presentation. Now, there's also some items that come with the watch, so you remove the fabric protective panel from the base. There's also a foam panel which you remove. And in the base you can see some cutouts. So this foam panel in the base is removable, and I'll show you the items sitting inside the cutouts which it contains. So there's this resealable plastic bag which contains a plastic vial, and as you can see it has a blue liquid inside which is thread locker. So this is used for resizing the oyster style bracelet, which has 1.6mm screw pins. You dip the threads of the screw pins into the thread locker when resizing the bracelet, then the thread locker sets and goes off, and that prevents the screw pins from unscrewing from the oyster style bracelet link, so good to get that included. One also gets this 1.6mm flathead jeweler's screwdriver, no shank to it, rotating hex head which also has knurling on it, and it has a hardened tool steel tip. So good to get this included, and it does suffice in resizing the 1.6mm screw pins in the bracelet. The oyster style bracelet that comes fitted to the head of the piece has enough links in it to fit up to a maximum 8-inch wrist size, but in addition to that, Wise also include 4 full oyster style links and 4 screw pins. So this is good because if you damage any of the screw pins when resizing the bracelet, or you damage any of the links, you also have 4 full oyster style links. And the other benefit is, if you are a collector with a very large wrist of 8 inches plus, there are enough links, as you can see, to size the bracelet up to a maximum 9-inch wrist size. So good to get that included in the absence of half links in the bracelet. So one also gets this plastic card, which is the warranty card. So it's got a brushed satin finish to it, rather like brushed stainless steel or aluminium, but it's actually made from plastic. On the reverse we've got the full reference number of this Full Lume Special Edition HIT66-3R, date of purchase, serial number of the piece because it's individually numbered, and also a QR code to download information about the Wise brand. There's also another QR code you can scan with your Android or iPhone, and that will download online support from their customer services. And we've also got the address of the Wise factory in Bangkok in Thailand. The watch is covered by a 12-month international warranty, which is good. So one also gets a Wise branded microfiber polishing cloth. I always think it's a nice touch to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth, irrespective of the price point of a piece. And lastly, in the top right hand corner cutout, we have a small spring bar tool, 2-prong fork at one end and a push pin at the other end, which is useful if you want to fit straps to the head of the piece as an alternative to the oyster style bracelet. The oyster style bracelet does have quick release spring bars, and that negates the need for a spring bar tool, but it is good to have one included if you want to fit straps. So good presentation, and I like it. Now lastly, there's also this card, which has a QR code which you can scan with your Android or iPhone to download the owner's instruction manual. Clear, concise diagrams. The instructions are in English and it details the operation of the movement used, which is the Seiko Caliber NH38A automatic. Also gives some basic setup instructions to start the watch. You shake the watch from left to right for 30 seconds, that will start it, and it also details that you need to manually wind it clockwise on the crown 20 to 30 times to get the watch started. This is good if you're unfamiliar with automatic calibers such as the NH38A. So good presentation, good quality accessories, and immediately one gets the impression that the Hitman HIT66-3R is a high quality piece. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 41mm case diameter. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 48.6mm, a thickness of 12.5mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The oyster-style bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the 2-button push micro-adjustment clasp. Now, I previously reviewed a Hitman 3 years ago, and the one thing I was critical of that piece was the clasp, because it had a 2-button push clasp, but it was a very light gauge of pressed stainless steel made from 316L grade, but there were only 3 micro adjustment holes on the flanks, and it was a very short pressed stainless steel clasp, and it was a clear cost cutting measure. It was a solid milled stainless steel clasp rather than a pressed stainless steel clasp, but the outer body was pressed and it was very light gauge, and it really cheapened the watch, and that was the one thing I wanted Wise to upgrade to it. So I'm pleased to see that 3 years later, with this full Lume special edition version of the Hitman, they have addressed that negative comment and that feedback, and they've now introduced this 2-button push micro adjustment clasp with a ratcheting mechanism, nice heavy gauge to it, and it is much better than the pressed stainless steel clasp on the previous version of the Hitman I reviewed 3 years ago, so they deserve credit for upgrading it. So we have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished applied indices and silver mirror polished skeletonized handset. These skeletonized hands are partially skeletonized and they're fully lumed with BGW9, as are the applied indices and the dial. So this dial is fully lumed with BGW9, and as you can see, there's a perfect colour tone match. The BGW9 dial, indices and handset all have the same white tone. They don't look whiter or more cream. They are all pure white. So they've got the colour tone match correct, and it's very nice to see a fully lumed dial. One thing I like about it is the contrasting blue second hand, because it contrasts very well with the white dial and also matches the navy blue ceramic bezel insert, which is also fully lumed with BGW9. Again, they've got the colour tone match. The triangle in replacement of a Lume pip at 12 o'clock is nice and white, good proportions to it. White minute ticks as per a Rolex mil sub bezel, and the Arabic numerals are also high definition and crisp. They're sharp, the font is clearly legible, and the engraving is nice and sharp. It's high definition and fully inlaid with BGW9 to a good standard. Nice glossy finish to the ceramic, and the navy blue colour tone is very aesthetically pleasing. The bezel is solid 316L grade stainless steel, coin edge finished, and it's got a very fine coin edge teeth to the bezel. There's also a groove which is machined into it, which adds interest to it. It's very grippy and tactile despite being low profile, very aesthetically pleasing. Nice large mirror polished chamfer to the top edge that deletes the sharp tips of the teeth and also catches the light, so it's very aesthetically pleasing. Does remind me of a Tudor Black Bay Heritage or Black Bay 58 coin edge bezel because the teeth are very fine. The head of the piece is solid 316L grade stainless steel, brush satin finish to the tops of the lugs, and that complements the longitudinal brush satin finishing to the flanks. Nice fine grained finish to the longitudinal brush satin finishing, beautiful luster to it. No crown guards case, the knurled crown is correctly proportioned, and I like the large mirror polished bevels which mark the transition between the tops of the curved lugs and the brush satin finish flanks. The large mirror polished bevels add interest, and they've got nice crisp edges. No sharp corners, no sharp edges. The 4 corners to the tips of the lugs have been deburred and chamfered very well, and there's no sharp undercuts to the flanks. There's a nice large chamfer to the edge of the undercuts. So this case is very well finished. To put the finishing into perspective, it is equal quality to a San Martin at a similar price point, and they deserve credit because the finishing to the head of the piece is excellent at this price point. So let's look at the bracelet and clasp in detail. So female pivoted end links are the correct choice. They deserve credit here because they could have used male end links, but this has a very good lug to lug measurement of 48.6, often referred to 48mm as being the sweet spot, so it's only 0.6mm longer than the perfect lug to lug measurement of the sweet spot 48. Female pivoted end links articulate freely, they don't feel stiff or kink, so that's good, and they allow the end link in the oyster style bracelet to pull beneath the tips of the lugs, so this is particularly beneficial if you have a smaller wrist size of 6 to 7 inches. Nice snug fit, they don't feel stiff, but they articulate freely. Minimal play, lateral, side to side, up and down, and longitudinal play, so the tolerances are good. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play in any direction, so tolerances are good. Beautiful luster to the oyster style bracelet, nice fine grained satin finishing, and that complements the brushed satin finishing to the flanks. By using brushed satin finishing on the flanks versus mirror polishing, it gives it a tool watch aesthetic, and the brushed satin finishing on the flanks matches the brushed satin finishing to the flanks to the case. The 1.6mm screw pins are good to see, rather than the cost-cutting measure of using push pins at this price point. So, bracelet articulates freely. The links don't feel stiff or kink. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, articulate freely. They don't feel stiff or kink. Tolerances are nice and tight, and that's the benefit of using screw pins rather than push pins as a cost-cutting measure. Bracelet doesn't feel sloppy, doesn't rattle, doesn't have excessive longitudinal, lateral, side-to-side or up and down play, but nice and tight tolerances. The links articulate freely. No sharp edge to the top edge or the lower edges of the flanks, doesn't pull arm hairs, articulates freely but feels smooth and flexible, very well finished. Beautiful luster to it, and they deserve credit. This is high quality finishing to the bracelet throughout. Now, as I've detailed, 3 years ago I reviewed a Wise Hitman, and the one negative, the one thing I disliked about the watch was the pressed body to the stainless steel clasp. Had a two button push solid milled stainless steel clasp, but only had 3 holes in the flanks, and it was too short, and the gauge was very lightweight. It was a poor quality, cheap clasp on an excellent bracelet. Now, 3 years later, I'm pleased to see Wise have updated it to this 2-button push micro adjustment clasp, as you can see. So, good spring-loaded action to the brushed satin finish triggers. Opens smoothly, doesn't feel stiff. Solid mill 316L grade stainless steel internals, doesn't have sharp corners to the centre section, so that's good. Beautiful luster to the brushed satin finishing to the top side, underside and flanks, doesn't have sharp edges to the top edge or the low edge of the left or the right hand portion. Let's check the hinge pins. Left hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess lateral, longitudinal, side to side or up and down play, so that's good. Centre hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play in any direction. Lastly, let's check the right hand hinge pin. Articulates freely, doesn't have excess play in any direction. So, 3 tight hinge pins. Tolerances are good. Build quality, quality control, finishing, and I like the interference fit. Left hand, centre, right hand hinge pin, all feel good. So they've done a good job. This is an example to other micro brands in the low tier at the €416 price point of how to get build quality, quality control, finishing, and also tolerances correct. Now, the thing I like about this is it's got a trigger, as you can see, which has Wise engraved into it, spring-loaded trigger, and it provides 10mm of micro adjustment. Now, it's got a nice firm resistance. You've really got to push in the trigger hard with your index finger or thumb to get it to deploy. So I'll just push it in and then deploy it. Feels nice and smooth. Now, heavy ratcheting clicks, nice loud audible clicks. You can feel each one of the loud audible clicks. So it feels positive, feels reliable, feels robust. 10mm of adjustment is good. Now, they could further enhance this by adding half links on the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock side of the clasp, because in the absence of half links in the bracelet, sometimes it's hard to get the correct fit by adding or subtracting one full oyster style link. By adding a half link either side on the 6 and the 12 o'clock side, that would mean it's easier to get the perfect fit. But in the absence of half links, 10mm of micro adjustment is adequate, and therefore you can get the perfect fit. I like the feeling of it. Now, when it's fully deployed, it doesn't rattle, doesn't feel like it has excessive play. When it's fully at its minimum, again, doesn't rattle, doesn't have excessive play. You've got to really push in the trigger so it's not going to accidentally deploy when on wrist with your index finger or thumb. And I like the heavy, loud, audible clicks. feels positive, works very well. This is a very good micro adjustment clasp, and it's far better. It's a level above the previous 3 micro adjustment holes they had in a pressed body stainless steel clasp they were previously using on the Wise Hitman. This is far better. Nice heavy gauge to it, beautiful luster to the brushed satin finishing to the body, beautiful finishing to the brushed satin finishing to the flanks, nice luster, and I like the large mirror polished bevel which marks the transition between the body and the flanks. Doesn't have a sharp edge on the top edge or the low edge. The 4 corners don't have sharp corners. They've been deburred and chamfered very well. The undercut has been chamfered very well, so that doesn't have a sharp edge. So it feels comfortable, proportions are correct, doesn't look too large, too bulky, too thick, and even if you have a smaller wrist size of 6 to 7 inches, it's the correct length. You're not going to have too much overhang, and also it doesn't stick too proud out from the wrist. It's a low profile, correctly proportioned micro adjustment clasp. Feels good. I like the 2 button push triggers, nice firm resistance. I like the finishing of it, feels comfortable, not bulky, and the ratcheting mechanism feels robust and reliable. Snaps shut with a nice positive click. Excellent. Also like that it's engraved with high definition engraving with the Wise emblem and also Wise text logo. It's the perfect micro adjustment clasp. Right, so let's test the bezel execution. 120 click unidirectional bezel as one would expect. Now, it's low profile and coin edge finish, but it does feel grippy and tactile. You can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb, even though it has a large mirror polished chamfered to it, which deletes the sharp tips to the teeth. So, feels even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation. It's a tight bezel, and that takes some getting used to. You've really got to get a good grip of it, good purchase with your index finger and thumb to turn it. It takes a lot of force or a lot of torsion. Feels nice and tight. Heavier bezel execution than on a Seiko 5KX. Or to put it into perspective, heavier than a San Martin SN004G or a SN006G, which you might be familiar with, or again an SN017G. Heavier bezel execution. Heavier than a 5KX. I like it. Feels nice and tight, feels reliable, feels robust. The 120 clicks feel even all the way through the 360 degrees rotation. No lateral side-to-side play whatsoever. No back play whatsoever. Feels nice and tight. And I like the firm resistance because it feels tight and robust. It feels like it's going to be durable and reliable long term. And it's actually difficult to get a grip with my gloves because of the large mirror polish chamfer, and it is low profile. It's got very fine teeth, but you can get good purchase. So just bear with me, and I'm going to align it. Actually, I'm just going to take off my right hand glove because that will make it easier to get purchase, because I want to check the alignment. When you wear gloves, sometimes it can be slippy to actually get a grip of a bezel. Now it's easy because I can get good purchase. The coin edge teeth are fine, but they don't feel sharp, so they don't dig into your skin, but they feel very grippy and tactile. Nice loud audible clicks, no lateral side-to-side play, no back play. So finally, let's just check the alignment. It's just easier to get a grip with a bare hand. One more click. Perfect. The fully loomed triangle on the ceramic bezel insert perfectly aligns with the 60-minute tick on the chapter ring and the 12 o'clock index on the dial. So, perfect bezel execution. 120 clicks feel smooth and even all the way through the 360 degrees. They don't get lighter or tighter. And I like the firm resistance. This is an excellent bezel execution. Feels tight, feels robust. No lateral side-to-side play, no back play, even through the 360 degrees. Bang on. Perfect alignment. Wise deserve credit. It's the perfect bezel execution, and if you like tight bezel execution rather than a loose, sloppy bezel, you'll particularly appreciate this. So let's test the screw down crown execution. Solid 316L grade stainless steel crown, matte finish to it, knurled crown versus coin edge crown. I think this would look more aesthetically pleasing if they used the coin edge crown. Usually, knurled crowns are used with scalloped bezels, or alternatively a gear tooth crown with a gear tooth bezel, because the bezel and crown should match. So, for example, with a scalloped bezel, a knurled crown works. A coin edge bezel should have a coin edge crown, but this is subjective. Some collectors will like the aggressive profiling to the knurled teeth. So, nice large chamfer, which deletes the sharp tips to the knurled teeth. It's a correctly proportioned crown. It's large enough to be grippy and tactile without sticking out too proud from the right hand flank, so it's easy to get purchase on it. Let's test unscrewing it. Now it does feel smooth, minimal number of turns required to unscrew it, but it's not silky smooth. Doesn't feel rough or gritty, but it just doesn't feel silky smooth. There is room for improvement. They could refine it. they could refine the tolerances of the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube to make them mesh better. Now, it's not a negative, it's not detrimental. I'm just going to test screwing it back down and unscrewing it one more time. I'm not going to be critical of it because it does feel silky smooth when you screw it down, but when you unscrew it, you can feel some very slight friction, and the friction is not caused by the two rubber O-ring gaskets. There's one rubber O-ring gasket inside the crown and a second rubber O-ring gasket seal inside the crown tube, and the two rubber O-ring gaskets provide an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters. So the friction isn't caused by the rubber O-rings. I can feel that it's metal to metal friction, so it's the internal thread of the stainless steel crown rubbing against the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. It does feel smooth, but it's just not silky smooth, so there is room for some refinement. It's good, but it's not excellent, it's not sublime. So I think it's okay, it's satisfactory, but it's just not silky smooth. But when it's unscrewed, we're now in the manual wind position, and that's the benefit of wires using the NH38A versus the NH35A, which has a date complication. There is no phantom date setting position. This only has one click position. There is no phantom date setting position, which is good. So one can manually wind the caliber NH38A to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. Feels nice and smooth. One can feel the gearing meshing very well, feels robust and reliable, and one can feel the tension gradually building up. I like the feeling of manually winding an NH38A. Feels nice and smooth. Doesn't feel rough or gritty, feels smooth, nice medium resistance to it. So it's an absolute pleasure to manually wind it. Pulling it out to the first click is the final click, as I've detailed, because there's no phantom date setting position, and that hacks the movement. If you look at the contrasting blue second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead, so therefore it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the Seiko caliber NH38A. In the time setting position, feels smooth clockwise and anti-clockwise when you cycle through the 12 hours to set the time, light resistance to the gearing, minimal backplay to it. When you rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, there is some slight backplay, so you have to become accustomed to taking up the slack, but it's minimal and it's perfectly acceptable. Once you become accustomed to it, it's not detrimental. Pushing the crown back in, it's got a nice positive click and that restarts the movement. You can see the contrasting blue second hand begins to sweep around at the characteristic 3 Hz sweep. Now subjectively, one could be critical of the second hand running at 3 Hz because it stutters or judders. I prefer a 4 Hz sweep, movements that run at 28,800 vibrations per hour, because 4 Hz gives a smoother sweep, but this is subjective. For the majority of collectors, they don't mind a 3 Hz sweep from a movement running at 21,600 vibrations per hour respectively, but that's a characteristic one just has to live with the NH38A, the stutter or judder of the second hand at 3 Hz. Let's test screwing the crown back down. Instant thread pickup, there's a perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube, so it's okay, it's good enough. And it's smooth, but not silky smooth. I would just like to see Wise upgrade it to make it smoother. Very easy to do, they just need to refine the tolerances of the threading when they machine them. But it's smooth and I like it. So let's look at the case back. Solid 316L grade stainless steel case back, and as you can see, it's got a flat profile to the centre section, concentric CNC lathe tool machining, and the circumference also has a mirror polished portion, high definition engraving with the specification of the piece. The centre is also engraved with the Wise emblem and Hitman model, and also the model number, the reference number, because each of the full Lume special edition versions have a unique number. This is number 03527, so they're individually numbered, which is good, and it's very well finished. No sharp edges to it, and also the milled slots are deburred and chamfered very well. The female pivoted end links are a good snug fit to the head of the piece, and it's good to see quick release stainless steel spring bars rather than standard spring bars. That negates the need for a spring bar tool if you want to exchange the oyster style bracelet for a strap. So it's good. And the quality of the finishing to the case back is excellent. Feels nice and smooth and therefore comfortable to wear against the wrist for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. The underside to the head of the piece is finished to perfection. One thing I like is if you look at the undercuts to the flanks, there's a nice large mirror polished bevel, and that deletes the sharp edge to the undercuts, and it's very well finished. And this is something I think other brands should do. For example, San Martin cases often have a sharp edge to the undercuts to the flanks. They have this crisp sharp edge, and that can rub against the wrist and feel sharp and scratchy. But Wise delete that. You've got this nice large bevel, as you can see, which runs the full length of the undercut to the flank, and they mirror polish the bevel, and as you can see it's very deep, so that deletes any sharp edge to the undercuts to the flanks, and therefore when it's on wrist, the edge of the case, the undercut to the flank, doesn't dig into the wrist. It doesn't feel sharp or scratchy. It feels very smooth due to this large mirror polished bevel. And on the crown side, it's also got the same profile to it, large mirror polished bevel. This is an example to other low tier brands of how to get it correct. By machining that large mirror polished bevel, it deletes any sharp edge, feels very smooth against the wrist, it enhances the comfort level and the feel good factor of wearing this piece for long periods of time, no sharp edges. The case finishing on this piece is excellent. It is equal to San Martin or better than San Martin at the same price point. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now just bear with me, I'm going to fully deploy the oyster style bracelet. So this is with the micro adjustment clasp on its absolute maximum, and I'm pleased to report there are enough links in the oyster style bracelet to fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist. I can easily slide an index finger beneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. I have a large 8-inch wrist, therefore this indicates 8.5 inches is the maximum on its maximum micro adjustment. Now 10mm of adjustment, so as it is with all the links on the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock side, this will adjust from an 8 to an 8.5-inch wrist size, no problem. And of course, as I've detailed, wires also include an additional 4 full-size oyster style links with 4 screw pins if you have a larger than 8-inch wrist. So 8.5-inch wrist. Now, thing to note is there are enough removable links on the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock side to size this down to a minimum 6-inch wrist size. So this will fit from a 6 up to a maximum 8.5-inch wrist with all the links, and you also have an additional 4 included if you have a larger than 8-inch wrist. So it's good that this can fit from a 6 to an 8.5 with no problem. Now, perfect taper. They deserve credit for using the industry standard, the perfection personified 20 to 16 taper. It's the industry standard for good reason, aesthetically pleasing. It's the perfect taper for a 41mm. Now, they could have used a 22 to 18, but that would have added too much meat to the bracelet and increased the heft of this piece by too much. Even though it has a 20 to 16 taper, it still is a hefty piece. It weighs 165 grams, but that has to be expected because it is a large piece. We're not looking at a 39 or a 40mm here. This is 41. But despite being a large piece, it's very low profile. This is only 12.5mm, and that's very impressive for a 200-meter water-resistant piece. I would expect this to be 13mm plus. That's the benefit of using a flat sapphire crystal versus a boxed top hat profile crystal or a double dome sapphire crystal, which is 2mm thick and therefore would increase the thickness from 12.5 over 13mm. So, large piece at 41mm, does wear with wrist presence, clearly best intended for collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches. I would say to you this will fit a 6 to 7 inch wrist because it does have the correct lug to lug measurement of 48.6. The case isn't too long. 48 is the sweet spot for all wrist sizes. I often refer to it as the sweet spot because it will fit collectors with a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. So 48.6, it's only 0.6 above the perfect sweet spot of 48. 12.5, needless to say, will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff. I often refer to 13mm or below as the sweet spot. That will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. So at 12.5, this will easily slip underneath the shirt cuff. Very low profile piece, although it is large at 41. If you have a larger 7 to 8 inch wrist, you will particularly enjoy the wrist presence. So wide piece, does have wrist presence, but it's not thick. The thing I like about it is it does not have tall slab sides to the flanks. It does visually look and feel like a Tudor Black Bay Heritage in 41, but it's thinner, and also it doesn't have the tall slab sides of a Black Bay Heritage in 41, which is good. So low profile flanks makes it more aesthetically pleasing. I like the curved undercut to the flanks, and again this is the benefit of that large mirror polished bevel which is machined to the undercuts to the flanks, because not only does it delete the sharp edge to the flanks, but also it means that it sits very snug to the wrist. You can see just how close the tips of the lugs are. It doesn't have a large gap. The other thing I like is they've made the correct decision by using female Buddha links, because you can see the end link in the oyster style bracelet can articulate freely and pull snug beneath the tips of the lugs. Had they used male end links, there would be a gap like so, and you wouldn't be able to articulates the end link in the oyster style bracelet close to the head of the piece, but the female pivot end link, as you can see, pivots very well. So nice snug fit, and this will work if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively, but I think this is best suited to collectors with a larger 7 to 8 inch wrist. Does feel good. Now, it is a hefty piece at 165 grams, but I have an 8 inch wrist. If you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you're going to be removing 4 or 5 links. If you have a 7 inch wrist to 8 inch wrist, you will even remove 2 or 3 links. So that will reduce the heft to circa 150 grams. And again, I often refer to 150 grams as the sweet spot for comfort level. Does give a feeling of heft and quality and wrist presence, but without being uncomfortable and top heavy. So this wraps around the wrist. It doesn't sit on top of the wrist like a slab of 316L grade stainless steel. Proportions are excellent. 48.6, perfection personified taper, 20 to 16. Beautiful luster to the oyster style bracelet, nice fine grained satin finishing. Now, the thing I like about this is the clasp. Similar proportions to a Rolex Glide Lock in length. So, even if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, it's not going to be too long with too much overhang. Often micro adjustment clasps, such as the ones used by San Martin, are very large and bulky, and particularly for collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, the clasps are too long, too wide and too tall. This is nice and slender in thickness, in the depth of it, and also the length. So proportions are bang on. 10mm of micro adjustment is excellent. Beautiful luster to it. Beautiful luster to the flanks, and also the large mirror polished bevel on the edge, which marks the transition, is very aesthetically pleasing. Proportions are good, nice curved profile to it, and it feels balanced. The heft of the clasp and the bracelet balances the head of the piece. Although it is hefty at 165, it doesn't feel top heavy. This feels like a very balanced piece. Comfort level is 10 out of 10. Feel good factor is 10 out of 10. I like the white dial, and also the fully loomed ceramic bezel insert with a navy blue tone, which complements and matches the contrasting navy blue second hand. Legibility is good, AR coating works well, flat sapphire crystal means it's nice and low profile. So, comfortable piece, although it does have heft, but I would say if you're a collector with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, too much wrist presence. If you have a large wrist of 7 to 8 inches, it's the perfect piece. Right, so let's do a lume test, and we'll see how the lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So this is the full lume version, the special edition HIT66-3R version of the Hitman. So the dial is fully lume with BGW9, as are the indices and the ceramic bezel insert and the handset, all BGW9 Superlume Nova. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This has actually exceeded my expectations. This is the best fully loomed BGW9 dial I have ever seen on my channel. I have reviewed over 400 watches on my channel, and I have reviewed a plethora of watches with BGW9. I've also reviewed watches with fully loomed dials, and I can tell you this is the best fully loomed dial I have ever seen on my channel. It is stellar performance. This is sublime. Just look at the brightness of the exciter of the BGW9 on the dial. Perfect colour tone match on the fully loomed ceramic bezel inserts, the blue matches on the ceramic bezel inserts, the indices and the skeletonized handset. The white tone of the lume on the bezel inserts, the dial, the hands and also the indices perfectly match in daylight. They don't look cream or off-white, they are perfectly white. In the dark you can see the blue tone of the exciter in the BGW9 perfectly matches. This clearly indicates an even number of application of BGW9. We're looking at 5 to 6 layers on the bezel insert, 5 to 6 layers on the indices, 5 to 6 layers on the handsets. And needless to say, the dial is also fully loomed with 5 to 6 layers of BGW9. Stellar performance. Wise could not improve upon this. When I previously reviewed the Wise Hitman 3 years ago, I was really impressed with the quality of the BGW9 used on that piece, but this has not disappointed. This has actually exceeded my expectations because it's stellar performance. Now, as you can see, needless to say, this is not going to fade whatsoever. 5 to 6 layers on the bezel, dial, indices and handsets, and the exciter is very bright. This is some of the best performing BGW9 I've seen. The engraved ceramic bezel insert is sharp and crisp, the minute ticks, the Arabic numerals and the triangle at 12 o'clock, and they've inlaid a good depth of 5 to 6 layers into the ceramic. It looks sharp, clearly legible, perfect symmetry to the dial, and that's the benefit of this being a no date complication piece, because we don't have a date complication making it an asymmetrical dial. We've got perfect symmetry, good orientation to the dial, double 12 o'clock index, and one can immediately tell where 12 o'clock is in the dark, and the contrast of the indices and the handsets, which are partially skeletonized, is good. Despite them being silver rather than black, there is a good contrast. Fantastic performance. This is 10 out of 10, and it's something that Wise deserve credit for. They do very well. They do not cut corners. Now bear in mind, this is a low tier piece, and often low tier brands will use the production cost cutting measure of using 3 to 4 layers of BGW9 on the indices or the handset or the bezel. Wise do not cut any corners. They use the industry standard of 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 throughout. Stellar performance. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. You'll all be familiar with the Seiko NH38A, which is the no-date version of the NH35A respectively. So the NH38A is made in 2 plants by Seiko in Malaysia and Japan respectively. There's no difference in build quality, quality control, materials or finishing or accuracy of the 2 respective NH38As, regardless of whether they're made by Seiko in Japan or Malaysia. Wise are using the Japanese made version versus the Malaysian version. So the NH38, like the NH35A, which it's based upon, they have the same architecture of the movements. They've both been in service since 2011. So needless to say, at this stage in 2025, the NH38A is a reliable, well-proven workhorse Japanese caliber. It has 24 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. 41-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. Has hand winding and hacking, which work well, as I've demonstrated. The benefit of them using the NH38A versus the 35A is there is no date complication, so there's no date wheel beneath the dial, and we don't have a phantom date setting position. It's deleted, so that's good. There's only 1 click position on the crown versus 2 clicks with a phantom date setting position. Stated accuracy of the NH38A is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Wise is doing a good job of regulating the NH38As they're using. This one is running consistently at +5 seconds per day, which is actually within chronometer grade accuracy of -4 to +6. So +5 is well within the stated accuracy of -20 to +40. And it clearly indicates that Wise are regulating the movements they're using in 5 positions to attain +5 from an NH38A. So no negatives to it whatsoever. It's reliable, well proven, it's a good, robust workhorse caliber made in Japan by Seiko. Subjectively, the only negative is that the second-hand stutters or judders, as I've detailed, because that's a characteristic of movements running at 3 Hz and 21,600 vibrations per hour. I prefer a 4 Hz sweep because it's smoother, but this is subjective. For the majority of collectors, a stutter or judder of the second-hand at 3 Hz isn't a negative, it's not detrimental. Manual winding works well, hacking works well, and I like that it hasn't got a phantom date setting position. Now, I would like to see a higher grade of movement used at this price point of €416. I would like to see Wise upgrade this to using the Miyota 9039, which is the no-date version of the 9015. It's a premium grade of 9000 series Miyota caliber. The NH35A and the NH38A are correct at the low tier €300 or below price point. But when one gets to €400 plus, one needs to see a higher grade of movement, such as a Miyota 9000 series, such as the 9015 or the 9039 no-date version of it. And I think at this price point of €416, Wise should be using the 9039 versus the NH38A. But the NH38A is accurate, it's reliable, and I do like the reliability of it in particular. So, last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So, low tier piece, price point is $450, which is €416. I'm going to declare it excellent quality, and I'm going to declare the value as okay. Now, I'm not going to say it's good value or excellent value because this does face some very stiff competition from other micro brands in the low tier. And at $450 or €416, that price point is very competitive, and we're at the upper end of the low tier. So to clarify, the low tier is €0 to €500, and then the mid tier is €500 to €5,000 respectively. So at €416, it is at the top end of the low tier, up to the €500 max of it. And really at that price point, €400 plus, one expects to see higher grades of movement, such as the 9039, and at the €500 mid-tier price point, one starts to expect to see the SW200-1. So I think in order to make this excellent quality and excellent value, Wise need to upgrade the movement from the NH38A up to the 9039. Then I would declare it as excellent quality and excellent value. I can't say it's good or excellent value with an NH38A at €416 because other brands are using the 9039 at the €400 plus price point in the low tier. But quality is excellent. Specification is loaded. The BGW9 is stellar. That is reason enough to purchase this watch. Quality of the finishing too. The bezel, the case back, the bracelet, the clasp are all excellent. No sharp edges whatsoever. The micro adjustment on this clasp is an upgrade to the Wise Hitman I reviewed 3 years ago. It's fantastic. It's an excellent micro adjustment clasp. I like everything about this piece. The feel good factor is good. The comfort level is good. The NH38A is reliable. Plus 5 seconds per day is accurate. So I really like the BGW9 fully Lume of this watch, and I think Wise deserve full credit. It's stellar performance. So I'm going to recommend it for your consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Wise Hitman HIT66-3R Full Lume Special Edition. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.